Welcome back, Star Wars fans, to another episode of Coruscant Radio Underground. I'm Andrew. I'm here with Marisha and our very special guests. We've got Dragon Buddy and Lunar Girl joining us again, and it's been so
Hi.
great. It's been so great having y'all
Hello,
here to talk all these Andor episodes.
Thank you for always having us. This is
it's
fun.
great.
Yeah.
And it's good. I'd have missed y'all if we hadn't had this to continue with after the
Right.
Rings of Power stuff.
Right.
I'm curious,
miss Rings of Power. I miss
I
it.
do. Like, I really, the more
wait
I
2 more
keep going
years.
back and rewatching into that,
Right.
it's a really good show.
It really
Yeah.
was. It really was.
I keep laughing. Like, Charles finally finished it, I guess, yesterday, and he
Oh,
sent me
okay.
2 days ago, maybe, and he sent me a message, and he was like, "I finally finished it." It was crazy, and like,
Right.
and then he asked me a question, and he asked me a Tolkien question, and I think he disappeared.
Right.
I think I might have given a lot more of an answer than he wanted. Like, I
Right.
kind of feel like I had this moment. Like, my grandfather was a math professor, and when I say
Mhm.
math professor, like 3 math degrees, a doctorate. He taught at the college
right.
level.
Nice.
And if you walked in his house with a high school math problem and said, "Hey, can you help me with this problem?" He would
Mhm.
say, "Well, if you don't understand that problem, it's because you missed something further back." And so you start backing up.
All
and
right.
and what you went in thinking, "Hey, can we do this in 10 minutes?"
Right.
Mhm.
Now.
2, 3
No.
hours later, we're done.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, I always had really good math scores,
Right.
but because I basically got it all twice.
Yeah.
But I sort of had this moment where I'm typing all this stuff to Charles, and I was like, "Oh God, I'm my
Well-
grandfather," but just with Tolkien.
No turning back now. I got to finish this.
Yeah. DB tends to tell me I'm like that.
Yeah.
He says it takes me 20 minutes to tell a 30-second story.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I can be that way with Star Wars too. It's just in the
Yeah.
circles that we run in on here, I don't have to be that way.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
It's like, everybody here gets it.
Yep.
Speaking of Star Wars,
But yeah, Star Wars. So we're going to be talking episodes 7, 8, and 9 of Andor. So sorry that
Yeah.
we've been away for a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
2
Yeah.
weeks ago, we had to go out of town to a wedding and just couldn't get back in time.
Mhm.
And last week, I think everybody was just a
We were
little
sick.
done.
We're
tired.
just a little bit tired.
A little bit.
But that live stream, we went 27 hours, correct?
Yes.
Yes, just over maybe 10 minutes over 27 hours.
Yeah, because
That
we
was fun.
couldn't stop. We were mid conversation, or Nick and Charles and Pat were mid conversation.
Yeah.
With chat
Mhm.
when
Right.
when it hit 27 hours, and we just couldn't just.
We
end
couldn't
it right
just
there.
stop.
Yeah, and to roll for another minute.
Well, I could, because after 27 hours being in the chat, YouTube was like, "You must be a spammer," and I couldn't write more than 1 word at a time. And I'm like, "Did y'all mute me? What happened?"
Yeah.
Then I figured it out. Oh, I can't talk.
And we're like, hey, you just wrote 2 words. It didn't work.
Yeah.
Nope.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but that
well,
was fun.
Fun story.
Mhm.
We underestimated how many questions we would need. And so, like
Right.
Iana has decided she wants to be in all the chats, so that's fine. So she's watching it, and I'm kind of following along. And I look down, ding, I'm going to run out of questions.
Right.
Oh shit! So I'm literally sitting here, typing questions, feeding them to Andrew. He's like,
Right.
I'm 2 ahead of him. So I was like, oh, this is not my idea of fun. I was just gonna sit back and I was like, I already did the work. I helped him write the questions. I'm just gonna sit back and enjoy this. No,
Right.
Yeah.
We wrote 50 something questions.
Mhm.
I don't know how
That's
many
what you
I
were
asked. I'd actually
saying.
like to go back and see how many we actually made it through,
Mhm.
because I mean, our winner had 55 or 56 questions answered correctly.
Yeah.
Which means I had to have broken 70 questions.
You had to have. And the funny thing is that before you started, you said that you were going to give us your leftover questions in case we had some filler space to do later on in the day. And that just didn't happen.
That was our 5th trivia event. And
Yeah.
I've never made it through near that many questions, and I don't know if it was just
Right.
more chatting in between questions.
Mhm.
And
Well,
I think
Fulcrum
what
was
happened. Yeah, I think the chatting between questions when it's a focused
Mhm.
yeah.
trivia, when it's Star Wars or Star Trek
Right.
or just
You have
like the
that
one
central
topic, then
unit.
everybody kind of you have a question and everybody wants to talk about it for a minute.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But with
Yeah.
this, it was like we just kept going and going and going.
You were all over, and it was. I think it was what 45 minutes in. Kelly's like, I just got a text from Andrew. He doesn't think he has enough questions to go as long as we had planned here.
Well, we asked questions for an hour and 15 minutes. I stopped at an hour
Yeah.
and 15 to give
Mhm.
the chat a question.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Kiana was really offended because it was something she hadn't seen.
I ran out of questions at about the 50-minute mark.
Right.
That's exactly it. Yeah. At Fulcrum, though, they were fantastic. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh,
they were
yeah.
just like on it
Oh,
and on it.
Gilbert was killing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Adam, Adam's Adam, he's always all for one of your trivias. So
Mhm.
like they
Yep.
were a great panel for you.
Yeah, no, it was a really good trivia panel.
It was enjoyable to watch.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's fun.
All right.
Yeah, there were a couple of them. Andrew was like, "No, that's too much of a deep dive. Not going to use that." We pulled out all the questions
Right.
about
Might as well.
foundation and all of my weird, obscure.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
and Iana was she's such a little lady, isn't she?
Yeah, she was having a good time in that chat.
She was being my Potterhead buddy.
Oh yes.
Oh,
yes.
she loves Harry Potter, and if we
So do I.
Right.
I don't know Harry Potter well enough to write trivia, but at some point
Mhm.
I will have Marisha or David one write Harry Potter trivia.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
will probably play, and everybody better watch out.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's
She
yeah.
listens to them on loop.
Mhm.
I don't know
I
how many times she's physically read them, but she just listens to them all the time.
Right. They're great books. I mean,
They
they're
really
You have to
are.
find you something else to listen to.
You can only
It's
listen
a
to the
great
same
fantasy
10
world to escape into.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
it's great.
Scarif's in the chat. So we've got who we have? It's Joker Voices in here. Welcome. And Ro has just popped in.
Info.
Ro wanted to come in and see if I was talking bad about his favorite Star Wars show.
Of course.
So let's just jump in and let's talk
Yeah.
about episode 7 real quick. I think 8 and 9 go together a little more.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So let's kind of break 7 off separately here and talk about episode 7 real quick. What did y'all think about the episode?
Interesting to where now we're kind of going to where everyone went to after the heist. That's as far as like Cassian running home to Marva to be like, I'm going to get mom out of here. And that whole sequence was a real, that's the gut buster to Andor, realizing like,
Mhm.
this is what it seemed like they were working for, was a way out, and they got it. And,
Yeah.
eventually finding out that she's not going to leave, that,
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
and then on the other side, this is where the ISB starts getting dark. Like,
Yeah.
this is the bureaucracy of evil, that's starting to take shape here of where they're going to go and the lengths at which they'll go to, which,
Yeah.
crescendoing in episode 9 later when we'll talk about it. But definitely, I was an interesting episode. Every one of these episodes, it's either all in action or it's deep dive, slow burn kind of stuff going on. And this is definitely one of those slow burn type moments.
And let's not forget the part in the middle where, Mon Mothma and Luthen, things are starting to get paranoid and real for them. Mon Mothma's kind of, getting the panic attacks right about now.
Mhm.
What are we going to do with this money? Need to build up the money.
Mhm.
And Luthen, he just wants his name erased from Andor's mind.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Now they place a hit out on Andor and nobody can find him. So,
Right.
Yeah.
I wonder where they're going to get
the galaxy's a big place. So what did y'all think about the way that Cassian is kind of just about the way he's arrested.
He's just a tourist.
It's just a tourist.
You
A
like,
tourist.
especially in like communist Russia.
Yeah.
Like you
Right.
read about, I mean, people just show up and it's just like, you know, you don't even, and then you're like in a deep dark hole, never to be heard of from again.
Right.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, this is like a classic dystopian slash
Yeah.
like, you know, communist dystopia kind of world.
Yeah.
And you know, it's scary. You know, it's scary
Mhm.
that those sorts of things are like, you know, pulled from experiences that people have had. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's crazy, and it's like, no, that doesn't really happen. But on the other
Mhm.
hand, like,
And
They can
Like the-
arrest you for anything they want, and then you are tried in front of a judge without representation.
mhm,
There's not really a court case. They just go in there saying you're charged with this 6 years.
Mhm.
right.
You
Yep.
know,
that
This is
classic
kind of
governmental overreach, you know, that she
Mhm.
keeps talking about in the Senate.
right.
Yeah.
This goes hand in hand with what Joker Voice just put in there, about how you can't create tension. This is where the tension really builds for
yeah,
me anyway, because this is the switch from the original trilogy Empire that we know. You have the big bad guys are spelled out clearly, big dark helmet, big red lightsaber, bad guy. Guy in dark clothes has an affinity for lightning, bad guy. Where this is, anybody running down the street is stopped because you're on a beach and you're walking around and there's sweat on your brow. You must be doing something wrong. So
Mhm.
nobody is safe. Where in the original trilogy, it felt more like if you could avoid, the space stations that look like moons and
Right.
the guy in the big helmet, and keep to yourself, that you could be safe here. And
Mhm.
this is that real turn to show you that nobody's safe.
I mean,
Right.
even
I
Marva
don't need a
said,
reason.
even Marva was implying that when Cassian's like, we can go anywhere you want.
Yeah.
And she's like, where are we going to go? Like no
Mhm.
place is safe. It's safe inside my own head.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting to see how they're pursuing this idea of showing us who the Empire is and how normal everyday people can fall into the trap of being part of the machine.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Oh.
people who just want peace and order.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that is the and whoever you view as the bad guy in this scenario, right? Like
Right.
Mm-hmm.
that is the buzzword for oppressive political regimes from
Right.
the beginning of time. Is
Mhm.
we're going to give you peace. All you have to sacrifice is your liberty
Right.
and your
Right.
rights. And, and we can make the world such an efficient place if only you will sacrifice your autonomy.
Mhm.
And, I'm sure the showrunners have a point of view, like a slant for how, what the allegory they're trying to tell.
Mhm.
But the good thing about sci-fi is that it's applicable a lot of different ways. You don't have to just
Right.
look at it. Even,
Right.
it's enough of an allegory. You don't have to even see things exactly the same way as the writers do for it to
Yeah.
still be an applicable allegory for like governments can be scary and can be oppressive and don't fall into this trap because it looks benign, but it is insidious.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this here. Sorry, Lunar Girl, to put this across the face. One day I'm going to figure this out. But talking about the, Tony Gilroy saying this is about police violence in Trump's America. His
Right.
words, not mine. You know what? He has said those sorts of things. He's compared a lot of characters to people in our country today.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is like
George Lucas said that the emperor was George W. Bush after
Right.
9/11.
Yeah, and so here's the thing.
Right.
I think that is completely hyperbolic. I think
Yeah.
that's a complete and total exaggeration of the facts. And it's part of why I choose to just take the product and view it through a historical context rather than listen to what showrunners and
Right.
actors have to say, because I really don't care what they have to say.
Yeah.
Because,
Their
and honest,
their
yeah,
worldview is 180 degrees polar
right,
opposite of mine.
Mhm.
They're
right,
not coming through. I mean, like they're filtering everything through a very liberal point of view. I filter everything through a lens of a Christian.
Mhm.
right.
Our views are our worldviews are very different, and so the only way that and so not just with this, but for me, like to take things that are on TV and enjoy them, I largely ignore what is said by the
Mhm.
people writing
You
it
have to.
because it's just
You have to.
easier to take this because even if this is hyperbolic language, when you put it in that context of today's world,
Mhm.
I can still look at it and say, yes, this world has existed and does exist in places.
Mhm.
Um,
And it has existed in places and times.
Yes.
yes.
If you go through what's her name is Arant, she did a lot of her testimonials were used during the Nuremberg trials. If
Mhm.
you listen to how she explained the people like Eichmann and those that were in power, the normality at what they did to them would set your morals and ethics on edge. And
Yeah.
that,
Mhm.
I mean, just watching some of the things later on in Andor, especially those moments that are they twist how you view the world because this person is so different
Mhm.
in their means to an end. So when you label it with a name and Trump's America or Bush's, come on, we could go all the way back and in
Mhm.
time and label it with anything. Now, if
Yeah.
you want to mix
Mhm.
what they're saying in real life in with Star Wars, I think you're doing it wrong by doing that. This
Yes.
is Star Wars. So
It's about a war,
I view it through the
it's a
lens of this is
galaxy.
the documented series of this historic galaxy far, far and away.
Mhm.
A
These are
long, long time ago. It's
right.
it's
Right.
not
It's a
even right
docu
now.
series. We got the
Mhm.
first docu series with the original trilogy. So this is
Yeah.
obviously happening far, far away from um,
Mhm.
what's
Look,
going on today.
and sometimes writers and directors, what they do is they take and say, "This is what we use to inform how we wrote this character." When you look at the comments he's made about Mon Mothma, comparing Mon Mothma to Nancy Pelosi, like I don't get that at all. Like I don't see it, I
No.
don't get it.
No,
But to me, it tells me that the way that he views Nancy Pelosi informed the way that he wrote the character.
Mhm.
Not that
right,
he's trying to make that character Nancy Pelosi.
right,
It's
Mhm.
just taking a real world thing and letting it inform how this character plays in your world.
I
right.
mean, Nancy Pelosi isn't even a fraction as beautiful as Mon Mothma is, so
No.
it
Mon, Mon,
clearly
and,
can't be her.
and Mon Mothma's not nearly sloppy enough of a drunk.
Right, yeah. Right. Well, Moth was trying to fight a rebellion, and Nancy Pelosi's just trying to fill up a glass full of vodka. I mean, so, so
Speaking of
No
Mon Mothma, though,
comparison.
it was interesting to kind of because by the we see her just kind of show up, as this sort of fully fledged rebellion leader, right? Like we've seen her in several
right,
iterations, and if we were a real diehard nerd and watched all of the deleted scenes for the prequels,
Mhm.
then we got to see her, kind of start to be in the beginning of that sort of discontent. But
right,
to go from like having second thoughts about the direction this is going to being one of the figureheads of an underground movement. I mean, you don't really think about all of the implications and you look at especially politicians who have worked in really oppressive governments, people who
mhm,
have, were kind of trying to pull strings in the Nazi party,
Mhm.
and like that line that they walked of still trying to play the game, but yet be effective. Um,
Yeah.
and I never really considered that dynamic because we never really saw that intermediate stage. We never really saw the point where they're still trying to like still be in the system, but yet also trying to overthrow it at the same time. And that's a really, I mean, that's a scenario that people have found themselves in over and over and over in oppressive governments. But that's something we haven't explored. We've just sort of seen her, you know, the confidence and the poise and the rebellion leader. So it's really interesting to sort of see the kind of behind the scenes, like, okay, where's the money going to come from? Really practical things like, where are we going to get all this money? I mean, that's an immensely practical thing that you don't really explore.
Especially in the level that the rebels will need to do this to fight the Empire. I mean, you're talking half the economy of the galaxy, basically, to fund the rebellion. So there's a lot of things in here that kind of we see Mon Mothma turning, and it was a neat interaction with her high school friend, grade school friend, to be where he was like, wow, you know, I don't think we want to go any further, you know, might be a little too strong for your taste. And her, that sense of almost like, okay, I'm talking to the right person. I'm glad. Okay, that's a good opening. I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing because that would be a little too strong. And making that connection now. With Perrin kind of hanging out in the background. I think all through this, Perrin knows a lot more. He's not just the guy sitting on the couch enjoying the grapes.
I do want to know Perrin's story. I want to see where he, you know, comes down on all of this.
Just a snippet of, you know, them being rich kids, privileged rich kids that were sent off to live in Coruscant at, you know, 15 years old. Married when they were 14 and then moved as a senator, you know. So it's like just to go, you know, to find that little tidbit out that she's just you know, they're rich kids that were brought up in, you know, luxury.
They made it sound like it was like an arranged marriage. You know, like the wealthy and the wealthy had children, and now these children are, they made.
There's a lot of talk about Chandrillan traditions, and so I am curious. I really want to see Mon Mothma. I don't think Mon Mothma is like. I think she's got some growth to do to become the character that we see. Like, I don't think she has that backbone yet.
She's getting there, but
she is horrified at what Luthen has done.
And knowing that everybody's watching bank accounts now, like they're really cracking down, and all eyes are on her. And she even made a mention, like, if I keep being annoying, they'll leave me alone and they won't suspect anything.
Just an irritation.
Yes.
It's really kind of something, you know, just watching all the dynamics kind of play out.
It like I agree that for me this show is still really slow. I do feel we're going to talk about 8 and 9 here in a minute, which are probably my 2 favorite episodes. Because the pacing, even though I don't think the pacing changes much, but for some reason it works really well for me in those 2 episodes.
I enjoyed those 2 episodes.
There's something different. And of course,
it was emotional, those 2 episodes.
So what did y'all think? So I think the highlight of this episode for me, I mean, there's not a lot of Cassian in this one. Cassian gets snatched off the street and, you know, sent to prison. So
had to get that Revnog, the Greenie Greens Revnog. Had he just gotten the regular Revnog on the other side of town, would he even be part of Rogue One? We'll never know.
So the highlight for me of this episode is the conversation between Mon Mothma and Luthen. Because this is where we really get into this thing, and Luthen ultimately tells her we can't hide forever. She is still convinced that she can fix this from the Senate floor.
Right.
She's doing humanitarian things and funneling money places, but she's still trying to fix this from the Senate floor. And I think that through these episodes, we've seen several clips of her in the Senate chamber arguing her points, and people are walking out,
shutting
turning off their lights,
and
and
booing her.
Yeah.
So
This is the announcement was a good way to. I mean, Deidre is calling this right from the get go. She knows what's going on, and I think that's where these slower episodes. I'm a guy that I like rewatching it, and a lot of times I'll be doing paperwork at work, and I'll have like a couple episodes go, and it'll be in the background, and there's just this every little thing that's said and done in the show really has a place to kind of lock you in for something either to come or something from the past.
yeah.
There's not much waste as far as just dialogue or simple happenings. Even the fact that you're not seeing stormtroopers, they're staying away from those shock troopers from coming in because they're still working through as a security force. So, and yes, this was a good turning point where Mon Mothma, I think, is starting to realize that, hey, listen, you can sit on the Senate floor and vote for anything all you want, but people are out there dying, people are out there, things are happening, and in order to have this fixed, we need to start coming out of the shadows. Like we have to hit them hard, and we hit them hard, let them respond, so more people will help us hit them harder.
Right.
And she's starting to realize that. That was the real
idealist, though. Like she's like, but oppression's going to get worse. Like you're hurting people. Like she's here to make things better for people. Basically, he's like, you can't make it on without cracking a few eggs. But that, like, you feel like this is really a moral conundrum for her because she's not willing to crack the eggs to make the omelet. And it's I think an important balance because you need both of those kinds of people in any kind of movement like this, because some people have to be willing to crack the eggs, but somebody's got to be the moral compass. We can't all be willing to do what needs to be done, right? Somebody has to have a conscience.
Right.
So I think you're kind of seeing a little bit of kind of that come into play, is that we've got some of that kind of going on. We're really seeing her come to grips, I think, a little bit with the fact that, like, I don't think that the Mon Mothma we see in the first episode is the sort that will send people to die to take out the Death Star, because there's got to be a better way to handle this. So I think we're going to get to see her be much more of a realist as this kind of goes on. She's been very, and she's a little bit jaded, but in a lot of ways, she's still very idealistic. She believes, like her, she believes in democracy, and she believes in the Senate. She's got a lot of high ideals still. And I think that for her to become the person we see, I think this is the series we're going to get to see a lot of those kind of get dismantled.
Right.
So what other scenes stood out to you? I mean, obviously we have the one Ro mentioned earlier, which is Cassian trying to go back home and get his mother out.
Yeah, that one really that gave me all the feels.
When he comes back from Bix to pick up Marva and to leave and finds out she's not going, that whole dialogue between them was, especially like she's empowered by the Aldani incident. She's completely empowered, and she found direction, and this is what she's going to do for the rest of her life. And she got that from Cassian. It's because of Cassian and what he did. And she doesn't know that. And he doesn't want to tell her that because he was just kind of doing a job, looking to get away, not so much in it for the rebellion. And see, it was a powerful back and forth to where she's like, you know what? I got up today, I put on my best clothes, and I walked through the square where they killed your father. And it's the first time I've done that in forever. That's a huge thing to see that, she doesn't, I'm free in my mind, and you'll never get in there to stop it. So very powerful.
Yeah. B2 emo, I really liked him, but they kept telling him to shut up. It was like, oh, let him talk. And okay, it wasn't K2SO, but it was a KX unit. And we all saw that and screamed, of course, like hoping that it was K2SO, but it wasn't, but still. So that was cool to see.
Right.
Ro had a really great theory of how Cassian and K2SO come to be, but I don't want to say anything because that's Ro's theory. But
Yeah.
most brilliant theory that I've heard so far, Ro. Like, wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the stuff between him and you can really see them putting things in place. Right now, Cassian is not concerned with anybody really except himself and a few people he cares about.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And he just wants to move on, find a new place to hide out, and wait for this to blow over. And
the money is still in the hotel room, isn't it?
Yeah.
Presumably.
Yeah.
Unless the girl
Well, I would
takes it.
assume that what's up there, like possessions that I think are important going forward, would be money. But I think the actual more important thing that he would have left there would have been Nemec's manifesto.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I think the money. I don't think the
that.
money is necessarily important to the story going forward, but I think they made a big deal about that manifesto for a reason.
Yeah.
I hope he hid it very
agree.
well. Like, I hope nobody finds that. And then after he gets out of prison, he goes back and he gets it.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to go back and get that. I think
Yeah.
that I don't think they spent. I think Nemec leaving that to him is important. I think that's one of the things.
Yeah.
One of the things that's going to change the way he feels. I think between that, and I think we're setting up. I don't think Marva makes it out of this season of the show.
I don't think so either. I think they're saving that for the season finale.
So I think there's a few things where they're kind of setting up things that will almost force his hand to feel differently about the way this should be handled, because he's fine with stealing from the Empire and just kind of like, but as far as like actually fighting back, like that's not on his agenda.
That's not his thing.
Yeah.
Right.
But once they, once they do something terrible to Malva, they've already done something terrible to Bix. Like at some point he's gonna find out all the things that, and he's gonna find out at some point for sure that the Empire killed his sister.
Yeah.
Right.
Or that this, that the Republic, I guess, killed his sister. Which I think that's going to become the point where, I mean, and not, we were watching it and we, when we see him arrest him and they like, all right, 6 years stamp and he's gone. I looked at Andrew, I said, that's how you radicalize people.
Right.
Like that's how you radicalize people is you throw away all of their hope and you make them desperate. You make them where they have nothing left to lose but to take on your oppression. Like that's how you radicalize people. And I think that the way that they did that was really on the nose, really accurate for how how humans react to things.
Leave them no choice. They'll either cower or they'll fight back.
Right.
Yeah. And leading into 8, that's where you really start seeing that effect on Andor, where the way his facial movements are through the episode of realization, and then realizing that this is his life for the next 6 years. And then any moment he could die. He stumbles out of bed too early in the morning and he's dead. Or he may go insane and do it himself. So that it's all leading towards where he's going to finally be all for it. And the way his character is, it's obviously going to be tragedy that's going to befall him in some way to where it's going to push him over the edge.
Yeah. Before we go to 8, I also wanted to bring up that the tiniest little thread of the story with Bix or not Bix, what's her name? Cinta and
Vel.
Thank you. Vel, yes. And basically like Vel wants to stay with Cinta. Cinta's like, I just found a place around the corner to rent. I'm staying here until I find Cassian. And Vel is like, well, how long is that going to be? And she's like, we took an oath, and you need to man up, and you love me because I'm your mirror. And that was kind of like raw, a little sad, but I get it at the same time. But they're like wife and wife, right?
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah.
And we know that the Rogue One story isn't the place for people who make doe eyes to each other to end up happy.
Right.
They get one last really nice sunset.
Right.
But that was like really raw to see how it's affecting like relationships and marriages, like
well, it's
the oath comes first.
that and how it touches people from different walks of life.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing. In fact, that's one of the things I think this show probably has done as well as anything.
Yeah.
Is showing how oppression touches people from all walks of life.
Everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we've been real pointed about some of these people that are fighting back are poor. They're just nobodies, and some of them are from wealthy families, and they're still choosing to live this way, to fight back.
Well, finding out that Vel is from a wealthy family, and
that she's the cousin.
She's the cousin of Mon
Mothma.
Yeah.
Wild.
Like when she visited in episode 9 and she's all dolled up, it's like, whoa, this is the chick that was filthy and living off of roots for 6 months.
Again, which is the mask, that they're wearing, the spoiled rich kid, or is it the rebel? And it's everybody's character has some growth through this show. That we're focusing in on, with Mon Mothma, even with Vel, Andor. Everybody's having growth to changing to how the Empire's changing them. And so, like, yes, we know what's going to happen. Obviously, we know when it's going to happen because we've been given years. So you can say that, we all know what's going to end up happening in the end. Doesn't mean that the ride is less enjoyable. I mean, I didn't know anything. I never thought, and I think I'm on the escape pod saying it at one point where I'm like, I don't think it's a series that I really care about, when I first heard about it. And then I started seeing some things and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm kind of excited. Then it was like, all right, now I'm kind of getting hyped for it. And I'm enjoying this because it's not the action of Star Wars. It's a lot of lore of Star Wars and tying things in. It's got
well, for me, like the storytelling here, we've leaned into more of it's still not true sci-fi because it's different galaxy, different set of rules of physics and technology. So it's still not really it's what George Lucas called science fantasy.
Space fantasy.
And it's basically, it's fantasy, but it's like science fiction in a fantasy world. It has its own set of rules. And, but, there's been a lot of conversation about, well, it's not Star Wars. It's not really Star Wars. And sometimes I do feel that way. I think there are a lot of things that are very Star Wars about it. I like seeing this kind of more introspective look at war and what it does. So I do enjoy that. But, as everybody's been trying to put their finger on what is missing, like, why doesn't this feel Star Wars to me? And it's because you keep thinking this is science fiction. It's actually fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fantasy elements have been stripped away.
Yeah.
And so for some people, it's understandable that it doesn't feel right to some people because you've unwittingly become a fan of a massive fantasy franchise.
But this was the war part of it, like it's not gonna be all happy aliens and like those cute little cruisers on Tatooine in the Book of Boba Fett.
Right. But I think I also wanted to address something Rose said. Not that. So the Academy definitely doesn't pay a lot of attention to science fiction or
Yeah.
fantasy in general, and it's why everyone that's if you're a huge sci-fi or fantasy fan, you really should, or horror, you should be
Mhm.
supporting the Saturn Awards.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. hmm
So just wanted
Everybody
to put that
knows
out
the
there.
Academy isn't for nerds; it's for the popular
Look,
kids.
look, I'll be very blunt about this. There is no more important genre of film than
Mhm.
science fiction. There's not.
No,
Right.
I mean for like the world
Yeah.
at large, because it's how we examine what we were talking about earlier. It's in a lot of ways a cultural mirror,
Mhm.
and you can look and say this is a problem. We may have different opinions about what the solution is, but we can all agree we don't want to be that. How do we keep from becoming that? Or how do we learn like this this is ideal. How do we become this?
Mhm.
Right.
So it's sci-fi is important that way.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the most culturally relevant touchstones across the last, I mean, really going back to Star Trek. So
Mhm.
going back to the 60s, all the most important pieces of television and film, as far as the way they've affected the culture, they're all science fiction.
Yeah. That's fair.
So anybody have anything else on episode 7 before we kind of move forward into 8?
No, I think that touched about on everything.
And I think we can
really
okay.
offer.
And I think we can kind of largely here, mostly just for the sake of time, is kind of talk about this as one episode. I kind of feel like this is one piece.
A lot of
Um,
things linking up and weaving through both of them. So yeah, it
Right.
is
Mhm.
definitely and it's kind of how they said it would be. That 7 would be more of a standalone, and that 8 and 9 would be a 2, and that 10, 11, 12 are going to be its own arc. That's what the word was on
Mhm.
the episodes, the episode count anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so episode 8. Let's just or 8 and 9. Like, what did you like? What did you not like? Anything really particularly jump out to you? DB, I'll let you kick that off.
There was a lot kind of going through this. You have you got a real look at one portion in here where Mon Mothma constantly throwing parties. You know that you've
Yes.
got parties going on all the time, and it's to pick up votes. It's that classic politician, to constantly throw these things that are going on to bring everyone together to buy votes to to
The little wormies in the drink.
right.
The squigs.
Squigs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass
With your
on.
champagne.
I'm gonna pass on the squigs.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah. not interesting.
Mr. Mothma took 2.
Right.
He had 2
Mr.
squigs in
Mothma.
there.
I'll
Mr.
take
Mothma.
hers.
Mr. Mothma.
But
But
yeah.
I feel like this
I don't
episode,
know.
I feel like these 2 episodes together, like I said, these are probably my 2 favorite episodes. They're still slow. It's not like the pace just like ramps up and takes
Mhm.
off.
Right.
But I feel like they gave me enough information. They gave me enough stuff to chew on in the episode that it
Yes.
didn't matter that it was slow.
Right. They gave
Because I
you
feel
Andy
like
Serkis.
I feel like some of the other episodes were slow, and it
Mhm.
only gave me a couple things to really chew on. And this just was like, I feel like both these episodes give a lot of stuff to really
Yes.
think about.
I ate it all up about the prison. I
Yeah, the
mean,
prison's really interesting.
yes, extremely interesting how everything works. Seeing the secret languages that they're speaking in the hallway with,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
sign language that they made up.
How many think we're getting a Snoke origin story?
I don't think we're getting a Snoke.
No, it's just
No,
Andy
no.
Serkis. He's just a master of everything he does.
And Andy Serkis, yeah, Rose right here. There are some really great in the prison, some really great parallels to PHX
Mhm.
1138, and so I really do appreciate that stuff.
Mhm.
It's one of those. It's not a show that's real big on Easter eggs,
Right.
but you could tell that as a filmmaker, going back to those THX
Mhm.
touchstones was I think he felt like that was enough of a important touchstone to go back to it. It's not in Star Wars;
Right.
it's something outside of Star Wars, but it's George Lucas's origin. So,
Mhm.
so I thought that those parallels were really good. Andy Serkis is fantastic in this. Of course, I think that goes a long ways towards elevating
Mhm.
Sure.
these episodes for me. I can't. I'm really curious to see where they're going to go with his character.
Yeah.
I don't know that he makes it out. I think that
We don't know that much about him yet, but like
and he does seem like he's looking out for number one, but also I think that
but that command and authority would be
That's
awfully
true.
useful to the rebels, right?
that's true.
Yeah.
Ooh, yes. Okay, this is what I want in life. I want a spinoff show with whatever the hell Andy Serkis's character is doing next. Creed,
Right.
I don't care what he's doing, he's going to be awesome.
What if he sacrifices himself in the prison though, so that Andor can escape, and then we don't ever see
I
him
think that's
again?
our most likely scenario.
That's probably
I
Yeah,
don't
like
know.
I'm trying
Well,
not to get attached to him
that-
because I got attached to Olaf, and look what happened.
That could be it. But we've pretty well established this facility is not incredibly well guarded. It's the security features that are allowing them to maintain control.
12 at most.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that a lot more Imperials probably die on this whenever they do make their break. Then I think a lot of people are getting off. I mean, I think this is a ship full of manpower ready to fight, right?
Yeah, seriously.
Well, and it's also so I've been working on the last show I did was about prison breaks, right? So they've got all these different, so they spend a lot of times like reading scripts and what about all kinds of different philosophies on like prisons, and so like we get in this one and it's like sterile and white and it is like but totally ruthless. So it's kind of interesting because there's a lot of like psychology that goes into planning how a given prison works, right? There's lots of different philosophies, lots of different things that go into how we're going to keep our prison population under control.
Yeah.
And so this one, just from that kind of point of view, it's like, this is a really bizarre, like there was one that was basically like, it was like a fishbowl. You weren't ever like, there was, you were always on camera. You were always like, they slept in the open. They, did everything in the open. And so it's a lot like that. And it was like that particular prison was just making people crazy because nobody ever had any privacy. There was no go to your cell and, just decompress ever.
Yeah,
because you were always
that.
Even whenever you're in bed, you're right there, like, and it's very much it was a really similar kind of setup that they had going there. So I was kind of noticing that, and it's like, and it pushes people over to not be able to be off ever, right? To always be on display, which is what they are.
Showered at the whatever you want to call that antiseptic spray.
Yeah.
Episode.
Big Lysol can above you.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. I mean, they did that at the same time. They changed at the same time. They can eat whenever they want in their 12 hours, but the food has no flavor. But at least it's nutritious,
They're livestock. They're basically treated as livestock. Keep them fat, keep them happy, as far as like their off time goes. But then
they
work
need
them.
To be productive workers. Yeah.
You got the D shift. That means all day,
So 12 hours. 12 hours on, 12 hours off.
I mean, what does day even mean? Like, we
Right.
don't ever see any exterior light,
Right.
Yeah. And poor Olaf.
Yeah, Olaf was pretty tragic, but that's of course the one person, like, Andor's really going to need the help of what's his name? Andy Serkis's character. I'm blanking.
Kino.
Yeah. Kino, he's going to need Kino to get off
Yeah.
this place.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that was the turning point for Kino.
Yes.
Oh, it's
yes.
again livestock. You know the
Finding
horse
out that
lame.
nobody ever gets out, and Kino
Mhm.
is down to like under a year. I think he had just over a half a year left.
Mhm.
And then he finds out after doing all of his time and working his way up to management and everything, and he's got under a year left. You're not really going home. You're just going to go to a different level, but nobody knows this. And the
Mhm.
people who did find out, they were like all fried, like
Yeah.
you're
So
never
it's
getting out. You're never getting out. There's nothing to work for,
yeah, because you've crossed the line here, like the empire needs
Yeah.
labor.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you've crossed the line from you're not a prisoner anymore, you're a slave.
Yeah.
Yeah. hmm
Yep.
That's
And
exactly
when
what it is.
and when
They
you
will-
die, we'll replace you with somebody else because there's
Right.
always somebody else.
Yeah.
And then
And so they'll,
finding out.
they'll give you hope. They'll tell you, oh, you're getting out in this many days, but
Mhm.
Mhm.
they'll just ship you to another facility. Like,
Right.
Yeah. And finding out that Olaf, the way he died is, the only good escape that you're going to get.
yeah.
And, that it broke him,
Mhm.
it broke him finding that out.
Mhm.
Right.
12
So, yeah.
guards.
So a character that I don't think we had in 7 at all.
Mhm.
We might have, but I'm like I said, I hate doing 3 episodes at once. I blur it all together.
Right.
Let's blur them all together. That's fine.
So Cyril.
Yeah,
and
he
we
was.
have
Yeah.
to put Cyril together. We're going to talk Cyril and Deidre together at this point.
All right, let's do this.
After episode 8, I was pretty so I kind of think I have a feel for where they're headed with Cyril.
Right.
He's been rejected by this thing. He wants to be a part of it. He just wants to be part of this club.
Yeah.
And he's being kicked aside over and over and over again.
Mhm.
It doesn't make for a good, when he responds, it's not going to be pretty.
Mhm.
No.
Now I think he's got I think Cyril's got a little bit of an Oedipus complex going on though, right?
Oh
Right.
my
Like
gosh.
his mother is like the most overbearing mother. Like
Oh,
she's
yeah.
terrible, and like
Yes.
now he's chasing after after this. He's now located the most oppressive woman in the galaxy, and he's
Dedra.
like-
Yes. Yes. Like
You stalking me? Yep.
the two of
You
them.
don't say that out loud, dude. That's not how you get in good.
Like
saying.
the two of them actually belong together, and God forbid that lady is ever my mother-in-law. Like
The thing is though, like they are straight up scary, like as a
Yeah.
prospect.
Yeah.
And I think that I think the direction they're going, I think they probably do end up together.
they seem
And
like they would
are
make a perfect couple.
Straight up toxic. They're
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah.
like real bad news.
See, I'm not sure that's the way it's going to. I'm still convinced that Cyril's going to wind up on the other side.
You think?
He could,
I
I
she's
don't
been
think
the
so.
rejection might.
I
Spin
think that
him, but
Cyril,
I don't know.
so Cyril is bullied by his own mother,
Right.
and now he's been kicked aside by the Empire. He's trying to find his way back in. He keeps getting kicked aside.
And that's why he's attracted to Dedra,
Yeah, and
She
but the
bullies
problem
him
is
too.
he has no backbone at all.
Mm-hmm.
He's a completely beaten down person.
Yeah.
And the moment that he decides to grow a spine, he is a potential powder keg.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, look what happened on Ferrex, where he's putting this whole thing together and had no idea what he was doing.
Mhm.
Two of his coworkers died.
Mhm.
Because he had to put this crack team together without realizing what he was doing.
Yeah.
So now on this level with the ISB and having at least some power that he has, it's not looking good.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So I'm still curious to see where he goes. Because like he, like I said, he just wants to be part of this and he keeps getting rejected.
Yeah.
And at some point you don't risk creating just your normal, like, oh, I want to
Super
fight against
Nazi.
oppression kind of rebel though.
Mhm.
Right.
You get the guy, you create a terrorist.
Yeah.
You create the guy that walks into the ISB and blows
Postal.
the
He's
place
gonna go
up.
postal.
See,
Right.
that's the thing. I think, like, even if he does cross the line, I don't think he's an asset. I think
Mm-mm.
he's just like he may be fodder, but I don't think he is ever. I don't think he's going to be a good rebel.
The
I
level
don't
of
think
being
he's going to be a rebel at all.
the level he was
Mhm.
able to put together Cassian Andor as being responsible for the two
Mhm.
corpos dying,
Mhm.
I think was about 50% skill and 50% luck that it fell into his lap. And now you're talking on a galaxy-wide scope of things. He's
Mhm.
not the person that's
Mhm.
that should be finding this out and trying to do something about it. Where
Right.
Mhm.
it's screwed up on the small level. So,
Mhm.
and I think Deidre sees that
Mhm.
you did good. I rewarded you. Now get the hell out of here.
Right.
We're done. Yeah, I think she sees that in him, and that's why she's pushing him away.
Yeah, and I think he also runs the risk of being like of blowing up the ISB quarters just because she rejected him.
Yeah.
Like he's like all the kind of guys that walk into movie theaters and shoot them up because
Yeah.
people are so mean to them.
Mhm.
Like he's that guy.
Yes, I
don't know what side
completely
he
agree with
winds up
that.
doing it from, but he's that guy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, Marisha.
Yeah. So I mean, I can see how he could still wind up on either side, but I think more likely he does something desperate
Crazy. Yeah.
and drastic,
Mhm.
or he decides to go hunt down Cassian Andor himself.
I can
Right.
see that happening
Still a
too.
possibility.
Mhm.
And we all know it'll happen because Cassian always shoots first.
Right.
100%.
As for Dedra, the more the closer she gets and the higher up she's being promoted on all of these special missions, her ego is growing just a little bit more and a little bit more. But there is a mole in there. Like I am 99% sure, I truly believe there is a mole in the ISB and she's getting too cocky and they're going to frame her with something and she's
Well,
going to be kicked out. She's
she
going to
already
be
had
I
kicked
think
out
it's
on
her
her ass.
assistant.
Yeah, right? It's
He's real good at his job. He's on it. He's getting it done. I think it's her assistant.
Yeah.
Could be.
And I think we actually talked about this for a little bit last time we did an episode, was the fact that I think that there is somebody, someone working with or inside the ISB is not playing for the side they think they are.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I think we did, didn't we?
And you do have Blevin where he definitely went after Deidre and called her out in the middle of a meeting to question what she's doing, only to have what she was doing praised as going above and beyond doing her job. So he's a little suspect, I think, as far as in the ISB.
That's the thing. Like at first I thought it was Blevin, but that's too obvious. That's too obvious. I think that they're just putting Blevin there to throw us off. Like I actually think it might be the boss guy. And I can't remember his name. You keep saying no, DB, but I think it is the one that said, "Watch your back."
Oh,
the little dude with the white hair.
The major.
Yeah, I think it's him. I really think it's him. I really do.
I mean, I think they've set up a lot of potential things to happen here.
Yeah.
But what do y'all think about? Sorry.
Right.
I think one of my favorite things was the conversation between Luthen and Saw.
Yeah.
That
Which
was
is-
good.
Well, it's really interesting. First of all, you got two really good actors on screen having this conversation,
Absolutely.
so that
Mhm.
elevates it all,
Yeah.
by itself. But
Extremely.
what do y'all think about? I do like how they both come in and kind of like the stroking each other's egos there for a
Right.
minute. Like, was this you? It's like,
Yep.
yeah,
You
the
did
back
the
and forth.
heist.
Nobody
No,
really
you did
wants.
the heist. No,
Right.
I know it was you.
Yep. So I enjoyed that, but what do y'all think specifically about Saul's thoughts? Saul's not willing to work with these other people,
No.
which is not exactly. It doesn't. I don't think it like undoes anything, but like we were always led to believe that most of these other groups just decided they were unwilling to work with Saul.
Mhm.
Right.
But
Right.
it kind of at least at this point looks like Saul really has no interest in working with anybody outside of his circle.
At least there are certain people he's not willing to work with. People who don't meet his standards.
He's a true believer.
He's
you know,
a true
it's-
believer, and he has standards.
You could call him a true believer, or you can call him a really big bigot. You
Well,
know?
no,
'Cause, like,
the true believer
he's like
part.
racist over this guy for his political, you know what I'm trying to say. Like, there's politics. This one with the religion. This one is this. What?
Right.
What is
Yeah.
your
I
political
think that
association?
true believer comes
You're kind
from.
of like a bigot.
Well, I think that true believer is himself saying, like, the intent of purpose
Mhm.
is the eradication of the empire. That is his intent of purpose. Everyone else wants to, well, we want to get rid of the empire and we want to form this. Well, we want to do something a little differently. And everybody has their political views where he's saying the empire is evil and we need to eradicate the empire.
Yeah,
And
but he's
that's why I
not
don't want
willing
to
to
work
work with anybody.
I don't want to work with anybody because everyone else wants to do something other than the task at hand. And that's complete and total annihilation.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's largely that everybody else has an agenda other than just simply eradication of the empire.
Right.
He's just an anarchist.
Yeah.
He is, and Luthen calls him that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
On
And
the flip side, I really enjoyed Luthen's speech saying she's just a coward, but we need to work together. This is way too big for us to be doing in the little tiny, rebel sects that we have. And we all need to combine our efforts if we're going to do this. And he was like immediately shot down, so
you're really seeing the power that Luthen has and the connections he has to fly in and host Mon Mothma and then take off and go visit Saw Gerrera in a cave in the middle of wherever, and then to try to hook him up with the separatists and so he has a ton of contacts, and it's amazing that he's been hidden for so long that he can that he hasn't been caught.
I mean, and he's right there in the thick of it. He's putting on a really good performance.
Yeah.
So what do we think? Do we think Deirdre outs him by the end of the show, or do you think he manages to knock her off instead?
I think he's going to expose himself before
I think he's tired. I think Luthen's tired of hiding.
Yeah,
he
is. And that's why he said he was a coward, because he has been hiding
for too long.
It's time to get dirty.
Right now, Luthen is the one guy that's out there ready to unite the different rebel cells,
right?
Which is a big part of that's, I think sometimes we lose sight of the animated show Rebels. That's just watching another one of these cells that's pushing back,
right.
and so you do have a lot of that. That's a different group with an entirely different motive.
Right.
Mhm.
And but right now it's not Mon Moth. It's this guy that's kind of in the middle of
Yeah.
Mon Mothma's not ready to go far enough,
Mhm.
and Saw is so extreme he's unwilling to work with anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Luthen right now seems to be the one guy that can drive the uniting of these groups. And so I really want to see if that's I want to know if that's going to play out in the show. If we're going to see, I mean, I guess it's going to. I want to know if it's going to happen this season,
Right.
over these last few episodes. If we're going to see Luthen step out of the shadows,
I think we might see that in the finale.
I think that's where we're heading for the next couple episodes. Is him. I think it's him saying, because it did say I've been hiding too long. And I think that's where we're going to go. Is we're going to see him step up and be like, listen, I couldn't get Saw to come say something, so I need to go to the other side of this equation and talk to them about joining forces, because going through Saw didn't work. So I think he's really coming out in order to start sewing together all these little sects.
Yeah.
SECTS.
Right. Right. Not to be confused with whatever's going on in the ISB.
So Rose says, what do you think about Luthen being a figurehead only? Seems like Kayla holds a bit more agency. I don't think so. I don't. I think they have a relationship where she's not afraid to tell him what she thinks.
Like, dude, you're blind.
Right.
Tell me to shut it down. There's still something more to Luthen than what we know. I mean, just for the sheer fact that he can blend in, he has a wig, he has different robes, he has different personalities, we still have those kyber crystals, like, who is he? I want to know his history. How does he know so much about everybody, and what is his backstory? Like, he's the one guy that I need to know more about, and I don't think we're going to get it until season 2. Maybe we'll start off with like him in a bacta tank or something. I don't know.
God, you in the back tanks.
We need a Luthen flashback, okay? I don't care how it happens.
Disney, you can do a flashback without a bacta tank. It's okay.
Yeah, that's the best storytelling device ever.
I don't care how
one they
it's
went
done.
for.
I need his backstory.
But yeah, I mean, like, that's what I want. And I know, like, we've had, Joker Voice was talking about it earlier. It's like, what are the stakes of this show? Because we know Cassian's story. And I don't think the stakes, I mean, you can make that argument about any prequel. Of anything ever, is that, well, the outcomes, so what are the stakes? The stakes
we knew what happened in the end of Titanic. I
mean, the truth is like everything that we have pre Return of the Jedi is all like, well, we know what happens, so why does it matter? What are the stakes?
Yeah.
There are a lot of personal stakes. We don't know exactly what all pains that that Andor is going to experience that makes him who he becomes. But I think it's more of these people around him. We've never seen the fleshed out story of how the rebels come to be a united force.
I mean, before this show, when we were talking about the Star War, when we were talking about the war, there were so many people saying, the Empire probably had it right when it came to this side of war. But now that we are seeing the actual reasons for this war, exactly what the Empire's doing in these prisons, how they're just arresting people because they feel like it, the torturing, like Marisha said, the enslavement of the prisoners. Like, now we really know why people are rebelling. are
Mhm.
rebelling. You know,
Right.
it's not just like the Empire might have had it right. You know, it's
Yeah.
no, they're bad people. I'm
Mhm.
Well,
sorry, bro. I know you're Empire, but
with the with the ninth episode, you really it's a dark turn in this episode, where you'll see the lengths that the Empire's gone to, the straight evil and the mechanization of this evil, where they were creating a fueling depot on a planet, and
Mhm.
the indigenous people there were not cooperative, so they wiped them out. And they found that when they did that, them screaming, especially the children, if you layer it just right, it's a great way to torture people.
Yeah,
So
like
we use this to torture people
yeah,
and just how dark
Mhm.
one would have to be to take these things. And
yeah,
you have the
Mhm.
scientist, Dr. Gorst, and you have Deidre, that these people have no limit on what they're
yeah,
going to do in order to get order. Now, the whole reason why Palpatine is in charge is because peace throughout the galaxy. And how do we
mm,
get peace? Is we root out
mhm,
all of the crime and to stop all of this. And
yeah,
you're finding out that these people are willing to go to lengths that question your moral judgment, your
yeah,
ethics, your
Yeah.
very self-being, to where that's this tension
mhm,
that's building, that wow, it's not this, these people are, man, these are the bad guys. It's
yeah,
we
Right.
had an inkling with the baby manacles that they put on little Yoda, on little Grogu, like who has baby sized manacles, but there's room, for a little. There's
Mhm.
no room here. Like you committed genocide and taped it, so you can use it for torture.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's really dark.
I mean, if for
Mhm.
anything else, this series is giving us the insight to just how bad things really are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Before this
it's
series, we had no idea.
Mhm.
right.
It's horrible.
Well, I mean, we're seeing the things that we've only heard spoken about.
Yeah, yeah.
We've heard about the empire committing genocide
Hmm.
and all the things they've done to oppress people, but we've never seen it.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
totally different when you see it.
right.
Mhm.
And doing it to people that it could be you or I,
Mhm,
and
Mhm.
the people doing it, to the norm, the populace of this galaxy,
mhm,
are people like you and I. They look just like you and I, yet
yeah,
Mhm.
they are willing to commit atrocious acts, all in the name of security.
mhm,
And they'll commit it to you just because they think that you might be able to aid them on their mission. And like poor Bix, I mean, Bix really doesn't know
yeah.
much other
Mhm.
than what Luthen looks like and a bit about Cassian
And
growing up,
Cassian
but
shaved.
not now.
Mhm,
So she's put through the ringer for really not very much information.
Right. Well, and that's kind of the dark side of what Luthen has done,
mhm,
Mhm.
because Luthen is using people like Bix, but when they're caught, they don't have answers.
mhm.
That
They
suffering that
just
they're
look like
going
they're
through
lying.
will help the rise of the rebels, because they'll rise because what they did to that one person.
Right.
So that he's willing to sacrifice, and that's him telling Mon Mothma that was, that yeah, it's going to get terrible. People are going to be, suffering. Yes, and maybe they'll finally stand up for themselves, and we all need to stand up. And that's it's those gray lines in war that what people are willing to do, what is right, what is wrong, in war. It's all war.
Mhm,
Right.
So
And I
crazy.
think that's where eventually, I think that's why when we see Mon Mothma ready to step into the role that we know her from,
mhm,
it's important because she is the sort of the moral compass of the rebellion.
mhm.
Like, you've got people that will do the dirty work,
Hmm.
but you've always got someone like her that's pulling you back towards, we're fighting for something good.
Hmm.
Mhm.
and and I think that's I mean, we see a little bit of that in Rogue One,
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right.
where they're kind of, you need these different people, but you always need that person, at or near the top that constantly says, "Hey, look, we're, we don't want to be like the people we're fighting."
Right.
Right.
And I think it's telling that most of the people that we see that manage to retain that sense of moral superiority, but not like in a bad way, who are the ones who can afford to. Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, they can afford to, literally. They have the clout and they have the cash that they can afford to not have to deal with the consequences quite in the same way as people at the bottom of the ladder do. And for that reason, if nothing else, they have enough distance that they can afford their principles.
Right.
And I mean, and the thing is, their principles are sound.
Yeah.
And I think that it's very clear through the story that their principles and their morals and their scruples are sound. But also they can afford to have them.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you see her when she's talking with the other senators that she invited for the party, and they're having a conversation that's very reminiscent of conversations that go on now and that have gone on before about what are you willing to sacrifice for safety? What are you willing to sacrifice? The age old, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, then why would you worry about it?
Right.
That one saying that spells everything out to where, if your privacy, if you're not embarrassed about your privacy, or you're not, worried about your privacy, then why wouldn't you want to share it? And it's my privacy. It's just because I'm not doing anything wrong doesn't mean I think you should be looking through it. But then that makes you, and that's where that paranoia comes from, of using that paranoia to take away your freedoms, to take away your liberties. It happens all over the world where you're
if you're not breaking the rules, then what are you so worried about?
Right.
Like, because eventually the people in power change and the rules change, and now we've given you all the power. And that's the scary thing about giving power to people. As long as you think they're on your side, then you realize they're not, and all of us, now you've given them all your power.
Right. You had Snowden come out and talk about the cell phones, and we were saving everything. That was the biggest thing, is if you weren't doing anything legal, why would it bother you? And that's what they're dealing with.
Because
right. So that was an interesting conversation to see going on, to where, and then leading into Mon Mothma standing at the Senate and listening to the naysayers yelling and the lights going off, and her realizing that nobody's listening. Nobody's listening, and it's across the board. Nobody's listening. It's easier to be complicit than deal with the wrath that would come from opposing.
Yeah, all that's really interesting. All the stuff about giving, what do you have to give up to be safe? And I mean, like you kind of, I default to Ben Franklin. It's those that would give up liberty for safety don't deserve liberty or safety.
Right.
And I think that's the story. The story we're telling here is, you don't win by giving up your rights.
No.
But I really did. I say Nick's in the chat now. I saw Nick say he enjoyed this episode, and this 8 and 9 are my favorite episodes of this show so far. I did really enjoy the actual heist episode, but these, like, all of the kind of undertones of these 2 episodes, it feels like things are finally taking shape.
Right.
Yes.
It feels like there were a number of episodes where I was just kind of like, you're just kind of circling the drain here. Like, we already had this conversation. Do we need to have this conversation twice? And I was actually scared this episode was going to kind of be the same thing, since we were going to clearly do 2 prison episodes.
Right.
They were both very different prison episodes.
They were. And they were offset nicely by the other things that are going on.
Yes.
The Cyril Deidre stuff is really interesting. because I really want to see what becomes of him. Like
Mhm.
initially, I was like, can we just write this character off already? But
Yeah.
now you brought him back and you made him just interesting enough that I'm going, okay, I want to see what kind of crazy he goes for when he snaps.
He is so gonna go postal.
And you also had Vel, who's coming off of, hoping to spend time with Cinta,
Mhm.
to Cinta spelling it out to her in the earlier episode that,
Yeah.
the rebellion comes first and we take what's left. And then
Yeah.
her taking that back to visit with Mon Mothma
Yeah.
and them having that moment and Vel mirroring that to Mon Mothma
Yes.
was a big thing where she's looking at her cousin, who is the spoiled little
Mhm.
rich kid. And it's, this is the rebellion. This is what's going
Yeah.
on. And it's
Yeah.
this building to where Mon Mothma is going to become the person that starts leading this, the Rebel Alliance, and
Mhm.
against the first Death Star it's wild. It's a wild ride that, I said that's why I think it's a good show. Is we're finding this backstory that yes, we know what happens, we know where she goes, but the story arc to get her to this point has been really fun so far.
Yeah.
I want to know which episode Perrin leaves Mon.
Or she leaves him. Or I don't know.
Oh, I
Maybe they
hope
work out their
Jesse's.
differences.
She's gonna have to pay child support. Kids,
It's going to be interesting though. When
And
push comes-
spousal.
yeah. Or when push comes to shove, like what does he choose?
Uh-huh.
yeah,
I mean, and, that's often like war stories. This is kind of a common trope, but it's always a trope in Star Wars because,
Mhm.
right.
as mentioned previously, Star Wars is primarily a fantasy story, which generally exists in good and evil.
Right.
Now, a show like this, we definitely delve more into the gray areas. But I've always said the gray areas in Star Wars are generally people that just haven't chosen a side yet.
Right.
Yeah.
They're often going to encounter something that forces them to choose good or evil.
Mhm.
Right.
And I think that's what we're seeing. Andy Serkis's character, I think, just had his moment that forced him to make a decision.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I think that, and so I think that the gray areas are always just where we go, where people are. Those are people who haven't truly decided where they stand yet.
Mhm.
And that's been the overlying theme throughout this is that the moments that people made decisions to either be all in or to run away. And
Yeah.
that's it's been with every character we've seen that this is the turning point to where they're leaving the Empire. They're going to be in outright you know against Palpatine and outwardly, which means now you're an enemy of the state. So, we're all getting to that point, and we're getting there through characters like Saw, who's already made his choice, and he's made his choice long ago, and he just needs help, to continue to make that choice. So, these are good character arcs that I think that we didn't know we needed to see, but I think so far, and that's why I'm really enjoying the pace of it. I just really enjoying where we're going and how far down this rabbit hole we're going. Is pretty wild.
Yeah.
And I did read something that they are building some sort of structural supports for the TIE fighters in the prison.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's confirmed, but I did read that that's what.
Yeah, that's what I've seen too. So at this point, I'll just say, yep, that's what they're building. I think it's part of the wings. Is part of what they're building.
Right.
So as much as the deals they're making on hands off, I really expect somebody's hands to get cut off. I don't know if that's what was going to happen to poor Olaf or whatever his name was.
I know.
Yep.
So I was at least glad they didn't do that because that was going to be graphic.
Yeah.
That especially on all that white, all that much blood was not.
Right.
I hit my head and I was like, "Oh, please don't."
I think it's coming, though. I think it's coming.
Yeah, I think they're doing that. They're making that point for a reason. Hands off.
Yeah.
So the prison uniforms. How many prison uniforms Andor prison uniforms do you think we see at the next con we go to?
Right?
Because
I
like,
didn't
well,
think of that.
well, because you're always looking, if you're going to like a 4 or 5 day con, you always want one day that's just easy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something simple. And
So at
fair
Dragon
alcohol.
Con, we're going to see whole groups of them.
Right.
Yeah, one of them may be our kids.
In fact, at Dragon Con, I would almost wager that you're going to see a group with the build table.
Yeah.
All right.
Walking around with the build table. I would almost guarantee it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Because they will take something that should be easy and way over.
It's got to be 7.
Right.
It's got to be
Yep.
7.
Yeah.
Group of 7.
Yeah.
How many's in your group?
7, including
That's
Andrew
what I
and
thought.
Yeah, if the nieces and nephew.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
So what else? Any other scenes that we need to talk about before we wrap
And
up?
again, you have you have Perrin. They make it a point for you to see him acknowledging what's going on. Like he's watching, and when Mon was walking with Tay and they shift around, he found a way you can see him like almost excuse himself from the people he's with to change to where he's going. So he's not just someone who's sitting on the outside living in the lap of luxury because the Empire is providing it. There is something a lot deeper going on, whether it's for good or bad.
Yeah.
It's not for
Remains to
good.
be seen.
Well,
But,
the thing is like, depends on how deep he is in his cover. Like, I mean, we could find out that he's way deeper into
when he comes up to his wife and says, "I know what you're doing, and you need to do it this way," or something of the sort. There,
No, I do not think Perrin is a
your
rebel.
hate for him is blind.
He is not a rebel, okay? He enjoys his luxury and his money way too much. If anything, he is a mole for the Empire.
But isn't that the same game Luthen's playing, though? His
Yes.
public persona
Yeah, kind
is
of.
this, he likes his comfort and his wealth and his, so, it's, I don't know, but I think that the interesting question will be when push comes to shove, what side does he choose? And I think I
what
speculated.
side does the daughter choose?
Right.
And I think I speculated a while back.
Own opinions.
Right. And I think I speculated a while back that it could be Perrin or the daughter that turns Mon Mothma in.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way the daughter acted the second time meeting Tay, she was very off. She seemed to be rushing for no reason. And when Mon said to her, your dad's looking for you, she was very surprised, as in, why would he be looking for me kind of thing. So I think there's something going on there. Other than that, it was a very odd way to film them meeting again with her acting the way she did, just as, oh, she's a teenager. No, there seemed to be something going on there. And, Ro has said it from the beginning that there isn't any wasted dialogue in here. So there hasn't been so far. Everything's had meaning to some way. So who knows?
Yeah, I think I'm curious to see. Perrin is one of the mysteries that still has to be answered here. I mean, we kind of know where a lot of characters are headed.
Yeah.
But Perrin is kind of just a big question mark. We don't know if it's all if this persona that he puts on is all real or not.
I'm off to stuff my face. Charity starts in the home. La la la. I think definitely more than that. Yes, Ro's correct. When they are together, he does have a demeanor that doesn't say that. For someone who knows what's going on, that he's opposed to her. He has a genuine almost concern the way he talked to her the last time before the party. There was definitely some concern.
I think it's just they've been together for 20, 30 years now, and he wants things back to the way they used to be when they were 15.
Sounds
maybe
familiar.
he's a Scarlet Pimpernel. Please tell me somebody gets that reference.
And been with a girl 25, 30 years.
I don't remember it. Scarlet Pimpernel.
Nobody gets my Scarlet Pimpernel reference?
No, I wouldn't get that reference.
Nope.
It was so long ago, I don't remember it. I do remember the Scarlet Letter, though.
So the Scarlet Pimpernel. So she's French. She escapes like to England, marries this rich, foppish sort of like just really obnoxious socialite, and she kind of hates him, and so she starts kind of like engaging in like political activity. And she just like the Scarlet Pimpernel keeps being this character that's like showing up and doing these like dashing heroic things, and no one knows who he is. Well, surprise, surprise, it's idiot husband. It's the Scarlet Pimpernel.
Oh.
So
what you're saying is that Perrin is Luthen?
yes. 100%. No, but I think that would be an interesting. I think it would be an interesting twist if he were, kind of playing the game, and he's sort of keeping he's actually playing the long game, and he doesn't, like he knows that she's involved, but doesn't know exactly what her motivation is, and if she's got what it takes. So
Right.
I think that would be the most interesting twist for it. He turns her into the Empire. I think it's a little predictable. He's a Scarlet Pimpernel. Better twist.
Right.
Right.
And so many people would eat their words. It'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, imagine a world where this season ends and Perrin is everybody's new favorite character.
Right.
Right, like that character from the Oracle that everybody hated so much, and so hooray for you, hooray for you.
It could be like in the boyfriend in Hawkeye, the swordsman.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Where it's like, he's just kind of oblivious, and you're going, oh, is he a bad guy? Is he
Right.
How is he the bad guy? And then when it's time to fight, like he comes out and fights. It's like, so
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to go for with him. There's a lot of directions. Like I said, they could go those directions, or they could just have him be the one that rats out Mon Mothma.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't
I
know.
think he's the mole.
He's the mole at the ISB.
Well, no, I think that's a different mole. But he's the mole at all the fancy parties,
Mom's mole.
Everybody thinks he's all hopped up on squigs, but he's really like got a bug in his ear. He's taking notes,
Right. Nice.
Squigs.
That's funny.
Anything else before we wrap up?
Squigs are gross.
No,
I'm sure there's a lot we could have talked about. It's always the hard thing about 3 episodes is you're going to leave stuff out.
Yeah.
Because to do it all, we'd have to sit here for 3 hours. So.
Right.
I'm sad that Cassian's mom is fading.
Yeah.
So we all know that's coming.
Yeah, I think that's a real sad situation, and I'm curious to see. Marva doesn't strike me as the person that's just going to go out sitting in her chair.
No way.
Yeah. She knows it's coming. She knows her time's coming.
Right.
Well, she fell down trying to open the floodgates in order to check a hidden tunnel so the rebels can come in. Like she's probably, I hate to say it, but she's probably going to end up being hung in the square. And I really see, because Cassian is nothing but tragedy, and they bring you. There were so many parallels that they pointed out to you, where when he was leaving Kenari in the ship and the sun washes over his face, is the same view that you see of him in Rogue One as the Death Star is destroying Scarif. So there's just so much tragedy in his life that it's going to finally push him over, and if anybody's going to turn him towards the rebellion, it would be his mother.
And I think that's where we're going, and at that point, he's going to be open to reading that manifesto.
That's when he's going to pick up the manifesto. Yeah.
He is a very tragic character. I mean, there's no way at this point to not have this character be a tragic character. But as far as things we do know about the character, even in tragedy, he was a character that decided to fight and die for something that he believed in. So, that it's a way of taking that tragic character but adding purpose.
Yeah.
So it's.
But yeah, those I think 9 was probably, I don't know if I'd say favorite, but it is it's right there as one of the favorite episodes.
Mhm.
Not much in the way of action going on, but that click and everybody's hammers, cocked, locked, and ready to go.
Mhm.
To where we've been putting these pieces together. So some big
But
things are
they
going to happen.
if they follow the pacing that they've been following,
Mhm.
then we should be ready to kind of slide into our third act this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So I think we see a lot of things go down between now and the end of the show.
Mhm.
We've
And I
seen the
know I've said
Fondor
a
and
couple of times that things
the
were going to take off, but I think we have to be there now.
right. We've seen in the trailers the Fondor coming up with some crazy lightsaber type weapon on board that ship where
Mhm.
there's something going to happen with him. So I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
It's I really want to see where Luthen goes next. I'd like to see everybody, but I am really locked in on Luthen.
Yeah. No, Luthen.
Ooh.
I think Luthen at this point is the most interesting new character by
Yes.
far.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that's probably a good place to wrap up for the night. So as we wrap up, as always, I want to go around the table here and give everybody a chance to talk about your podcast and what you got going on and coming up soon. So Lunar Girl, I'll let you kick that off.
All right. Well, when it comes to the Sidebar Cantina for Dave and Jason, tomorrow they will be talking about Andor episodes 7 through 9. They're going to do their second trimester report right there. So that would be at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We changed the clocks. For Stranger Things Has Happened.
Hooray.
What's that?
I said, hooray.
Yay! This coming Friday, we are going to have a live episode at 7
Ooh.
p.m. We are going to have two very special guests. We're going to have Madame Chantal from Scare Off After Dark, and we're going to have Salacious Rum. So
Ooh.
Nice.
we're going to talk about some
fun.
Stranger Things. 7 p.m. Friday.
Talking Stranger Things with a monkey lizard. I mean,
With a monkey lizard.
Mhm.
Monkey lizard said he really loves Stranger Things. I'm like, okay, let's talk. It's going to be our mid-season, season 2 mid-season break. So,
Okay.
Cool.
Just in time for Thanksgiving.
just in time for Thanksgiving.
all right, DB, what have you got going on?
Let's see. So Wednesday we're Escape Pod 7:05 on YouTube Live. We're kicking around Weird Al. The movie Weird came out. So
How was it?
that was next. I'm going to throw it on tonight.
Okay.
I got some mixed reviews from some people on it, whether it was good, whether it was bad. So we'll see what that's. But we're basically going to be talking about the life of Weird Al and UHF and the songs and so we'll bring up the movie as well. But that's what we'll be doing. And then Friday, the Red 5 Tavern is open again.
Tavern's opening back up.
We are going to be continuing on our quest with some of our friends. We've got Lunar Girl, myself, Tom will be joining us again. He's going to be technologically advanced enough to join in for our YouTube. And then Charles will be DMing. And I think we've got Nicole and Tina.
Yes, Nicole, Tina, and DJ.
Grant. Oh, DJ.
Not Grant.
Not Grant. DJ.
And it's
Isn't it a little dangerous playing these sorts of games with Tina?
Right?
Tina's about to level up to level 5, so she's going to be a dangerous
give her
little
more power.
help on Friday.
So, yeah, that'll be fun. So that's what we've got going on this week.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be fun.
Marisha?
You can find me usually anytime the Science Fictionary or Coruscant Radio Underground are talking about anything, unless I'm really tired or really busy. Otherwise, you can occasionally find me on Instagram at princesses _and Padawans. And, once every couple of months, I'm P Padawans on Twitter.
Find you on IMDb too.
You can find me on IMDb. You can find my credits for a whole bunch of movies
Yay!
you've never
Nice.
seen and never will.
Yay! That's exciting.
Yes.
All right. Well, you can find me at thesciencefictionary.com. You can find me running the Twitter account for this show at sci_fictionary. You can always, of course, this isn't actually Science Fictionary. It's, of course, not Radio Underground. It's all the same YouTube channel, so don't get too confused. It's a little odd, but of course, not Radio Underground is just the Science Fictionary's Star Wars podcast.
Yes.
It's always have to go back. It's like, how did we get here where this worked this way? And it's because everything spawned off the website.
Right.
So it's all here on the same YouTube channel, but you can find both of our podcasts, of course, on Radio Underground and the Science Fictionary. Both do have an audio only podcast. You can find both of those anywhere that you listen to podcasts. I will be dropping an episode of that tomorrow and one on Thursday, and we should have a few new episodes coming up. And Nicole is over here in the chat. She's gonna give me grief about the Muppets because I'm taking too long. It has taken a long time. I'll admit that, but it is coming. I'm not passing up on doing those Muppet episodes, but
Right.
we will get there.
Nice.
But I think that's about it. You can find our podcast and the rest of the Red 5 Podcast Network at Red 5 Network on Twitter or at bio.link/Red5. All right. I guess we're done. And one day, it's been too long. It's been 3 weeks, and I don't remember how to get out of here.
What do we do?
I know.
What do I do with
Do
my
you
hand?
leave?
Yeah. But
All right,
next
guys.
time,
Yeah.
may the force be with you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
See ya.
This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/Red5.